The Aam Aadmi, let's get a quick word in from you, Rahul. What's the impression that you're getting there in Big Bazaar? Those who are reading this budget, how are they reading? Income tax slabs not change for middle income, but will change for the super rich, those above a crore. But apart from that, is there a sense of a feel-good factor at all that this budget has created?
Okay, Rajdeep, we've been busy.
Yes.
Shopping carts together, and I've got a crack income tax, indirect tax expert with me. So these are different trolleys with different products and different thoughts on whether they're becoming more expensive or cheap. I'll start with you, Sonali. Give our viewers a sense of why these products are the way they are and what happens to each one of them. Which one do we start with? Let's start with processed food.
Okay, so we heard the Finance Minister Rahul, and what he said was that the excise rates are going to go up from 12.36 to 12.5%.
So that's on things like Pepsi,
yes.
juices.
So all products that are subject to excise duty will go up, but
roughly by how much?
A marginal portion, marginal. But for food processing, he mentioned that there would be a incentive in service tax. So there will be an exemption for service tax. So that would lead to a reduction in the prices of processed food. So I would say
things like biscuits, soups, chips, Coke, slice, all this is going to become cheaper.
It should become because of the service tax benefit that is there. But with respect to, say, this basket which has vegetables, there's no excise duty on this, on vegetables, so there should not be any change here. As far as this basket which has
shoes,
footwear, yes.
So this is above 1,000 rupees.
Yes.
What happens to shoes above 1,000 rupees?
So shoes above 1,000 rupees are going to be subject to a reduced excise duty. It's now being reduced to 6%, and that's a move that the Finance Minister mentioned during his budget speech. So shoes should become cheaper. Processed foods become cheaper.
So there's also this stuff. I don't particularly like it very much, but all this pan, bidi, cigarettes,
pan masala, gutka, all of this, every finance minister's favorite topic. So this year again, these prices will go up.
By how much? Roughly, just as a percentage? What's the change?
It could go up anywhere between 5% to 10%. It could vary in that range.
So do you smoke, Shweta?
Yeah, so no, not at all. No, I don't smoke. But service tax has gone up overall, which means cost of entertainment will also go up. That means eating out.
By how much?
Watching a movie. It could be anything between 3 to 5%.
Yeah, so
basically
watching
movies
and eating food outside is already so high.
So the entertainment industry is not going to be too happy today because, so it's already high and it's going to get
even
more
watching
expensive.
Movies you're saying will be costlier.
Yeah.
So the rate
I would imagine
is
so.
12.36. It goes up now to 14%. So it's a 1.5% increase.
And dining out as well, you said?
Eating out, yes. So any service that you avail, you'll have to pay more for it.
They're also saying that doing away with exemptions, not starting from this budget, from the next budget onwards. How will that impact people when they come out here to the Big Bazaar?
So those exemptions that he spoke of were the ones in corporate tax, where he was talking about doing away with reducing exemptions. As far as service tax is concerned, he did mention that he was going to prune the exemptions, so that could lead to an increase in taxes and in costs.
The other thing that we're seeing is that most of the products over here, unfortunately, the electronics, etc., are mostly manufactured outside. There's a lot of emphasis on Make in India. Will we see some of these products?
That's one thing that we didn't see in this budget. We did not see a clear-cut plan for Make in India. Yes, he did mention it, he did speak about it, but really what was missing was clarity, and that's what we were really hoping to,
No, but he did say that corporate taxes, for example, are coming down by 5%. That's something that corporates have been crying hoarse for several years now. When that comes down, does that then increase the possibility of Make in India?
So it means that companies will have more room for profits, which they can expand in the country or outside. They can generate jobs. So that's one aspect of it. But there's so many other things to really make in India happen. And I would have liked to hear something more about Make in India, considering we know that this is the focus of the government, and I think that's what companies were also expecting to hear.
So far what we've been able to do is put these 5 trolleys together just on the basis of what we heard the finance minister say.
There's one more point.
Yes, there's one more.
He's also mentioned inverted duty structure, that certain products which were suffering a special additional duty, which is it's a customs duty. He's going to do away with that. There's going to be an exemption.
Which products are they?
He didn't specifically mention those, so we'll have to look at the fine print.
That's when we'll have to come back here again to the Big Bazaar.
Correct.
Part 2, we'll go through the budget papers.
Yeah.
These are the products that he spoke about in his budget speech. The papers will have a lot more details. We'll try and add to these budget trolleys and come back to these shopping trolleys.
And food processing has a huge impact on rural income. You know, we have to remember that. So that's going to really boost demand from rural areas. So that's I think that's their long-term thought process behind giving an impetus to agriculture and food processing.
Okay, so let's quickly recap for our viewers. The first take of what's becoming costlier or cheaper. So you've got cigarettes, you've got pan masala, all of this becoming costlier by how much you said as a percentage roughly?
Maybe up to 10%.
Up to 10%. So if you smoke, that's not good news. The other bad piece of news that Shweta is giving us is that if you're eating out, going out for movies, which all of us do, that's becoming costly. It's already ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
He's adding to the taxes on that. The good news though is that you can watch cricket, you can binge out with chips and all kinds of processed foods like juices, ketchup, biscuits, soup, all this becoming cheaper. By how much?
Marginally, because of the service tax exemption. So it's essentially a cost which goes into the food processing
But the key
sector.
question also is if the companies will pass this on to the consumer, they could just as well pocket it and add to their bottom lines.
Yeah, that's a possibility, and that's a concern.
Okay, so you're saying when it comes to vegetables, there's no change. When it comes to, because there's no tax,
no excise duty.
No change when it comes to vegetables. But then you're speaking about shoes. So shoes are becoming cheaper?
Shoes become cheaper. Shoes become cheaper.
Shoes more than 1,000 rupees for boys and for girls become cheaper. By how much roughly?
By around 6%.
About
the
6%.
leather industry as a whole. So it's not only shoes, it's also bags. It's also leather industry, which ties into the Make in India theme, because leather again was one of the key employment generating areas for India, and it's completely wiped out now. You know, so all leather products, right?
So even our phone bills will go up because of the rate of service tax going up.
How much would the phone bill go up by?
So today we have a rate of 12.36 as service tax, so it will be 14%. So it's a marginal increase. So the differential would be the increase.
Why increase service tax in this tax?
The reason is that we're looking at GST, and the rates of GST that are being discussed are anywhere in the range of 20 to 25%. Today's service tax is at 12.36. So as a move towards introduction of GST, so gradually increasing the tax rate, because services today only suffer a rate tax of 12.36.
So what we'll do is we'll go back shopping again. This is turning out to be a lot of fun. We'll go back shopping again, look at the budget papers, add to our trolleys, and then come back for some more. But for the moment, we'll toss it back to Rajdeep.
Thanks very much, Rahul. That's right. You know, if you want to go out, that service tax component means that you might have to spend just a little bit more. But there was an important point that Shweta made, the lack of clarity. There was a sense that where is the clarity? When Sanjay Baru says excellent, when Surjit Bhalla says, excellent plus, there's a question mark is being raised over the clarity issue. And I think that's what troubles bankers like Meera Sanyal. Where's the clarity in terms of his Make in India ambitions? Is this going to be enough? If I want to manufacture in this country instead of abroad, are you going to look at what he said about infrastructure, which he spent some time over? Please tell me, what is it that he said in this budget that's going to boost manufacturing?
No,
and I'll get Meera and then bring you then, Sanjay.
The thing which really worried me most, I mean, we've been talking about this vision of Make in India and creating jobs, etc. What he says is, I'm going to set up a committee to look into it. How do I make making business, simpler, etc. What have you been doing for 9 months?
Okay, so you wanted that in the budget itself.
And incorrect.
Quick word from you, Dr. Baru.
I'm a print journalist.
Yes.
Right? For 20 years, I've produced financial newspapers.
Yes.
Where we analyze the budget. And we have always felt this about television, that the only thing we have heard is the speech. We have not looked at the memorandum, you have not looked at the finance bill, you have not looked at the details.
And he said some of it would be in the annexure.
Exactly, and one of the reasons why Arun Jaitley's speech is 90 minutes rather than 120 minutes is because he actually said that a lot of it is in the detail. Now, the big picture, fiscal policy, very clear strategy for the next 3 years on fiscal consolidation. On tax levels, in 91, Manmohan Singh said that we will go to ASEAN levels of tariffs. Today, Jaitley has said, I'm going to ASEAN levels of taxation. Right? Clarity there. Ease of doing business. Incentives for making it easier for investors to invest in India. Now, you want the details will be in the finance bill. Let's come back tomorrow, we can discuss the details.
Can I just for a moment come to corporate India, because corporate India at the moment seems to be cheering for the budget. Some would say it cheers every budget immediately after the finance minister's speech, but there's a genuine sense of optimism perhaps in corporate India. Shivendra Mohan joins us of Fortis Hospital from FICCI. Shivendra, your first reactions to the budget?
Well, just hearing the conversation you're talking about, the comment that I would make is that this is a budget of what and directionally where it's heading. It's not a budget of how, and therefore it's not giving specific details in terms of how it's going to get done. I think therefore you have to look at it in the context of the government, and do you actually believe the government has the intention to deliver on their promises? And I believe that the government is intent to actually deliver on what they're talking about, and they've given you a roadmap of directionally, whether it's fiscal budgets, inclusiveness, housing, education, electrification, about what they want to do, and the how will come into details, whether it's in the budget speech or over the next couple of months. As he says the Parliament will talk about these things and will debate and issue more bills and so on and so forth. But this is the what budget, this is a directional budget, and it's showing you the way of what's going to be coming in the detail or in the near future.
So what you expect really is that the budget speech, in your view, has laid out some kind of a broad roadmap. The specifics, you believe, will actually sort of translate themselves in the weeks and months ahead. It is not the budget speech has laid a broad direction. It's now over the next few months that we will have to see how much of that broad direction is translated into reality. Am I right?
Absolutely correct. And I think the question there becomes that, do we believe that the government has the capability and the intent to deliver on that, and therefore take a view whether this is a good budget or not?
Okay, so really in a sense you press the pause button. Industry is cautiously optimistic. Could I put it that way? You're cautiously optimistic?
Well, the way I would put it, I was looking forward for the first comprehensive budget from this government to actually show the roadmap. And to that, I have got a roadmap from what we expect the country to do, where it's going to head, how it's going to do it is a matter of detail, but it's giving us an idea of fiscal consolidation, about where the investments are going, what the tax regime is looking like. It's pushing back GAR, it's getting the GST into play, it's taking up the service tax. It's giving you the direction that you needed, so you can plan your life and business around that. And I am pretty confident that it will deliver on its promise in the House as it goes forward. So I'm not worried about it when I walk out of the budget. I get a direction, and that's what I was seeking.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. That from an industry perspective, it's given a roadmap, and I think that's the strength many believe. Has it given enough clarity in terms of specifics? Dr. Baru believes for that we must wait to see the details of the budget. That's the advantage that a newspaper man will have when they come up with their budget analysis tomorrow morning. But the first reactions are, yes, there is that roadmap. Will the specifics detailed in that roadmap eventually materialize is a question we will raise. Let me bring in a tax expert, K.R. Shekhar, Direct Taxes, Deloitte, joining us at the moment. From a direct tax perspective, he spoke at various stages about DTC, about the changes that he wanted in DTC. Are you seeing something that suggests that there will be a rationalization of the tax regime in the months and years ahead? Has he given you a roadmap for that?
Absolutely. In fact, I take one point particular in this budget, that the direct tax, particularly on the direct tax side, he has created a very good roadmap which is for the future years to follow. The most important thing is that in the next 4 years, I'm going to bring down the rate from 30% to 25%.
That's corporate tax.
That's corporate tax. And that's earlier no finance minister has brought that except in 1991 when Mr. Manmohan Singh did that. Yeah. But apart from that, no finance minister has even bothered to bring down the corporate tax rate from 30% to 25%. That's
over the next 4 years.
Next 4 years. Point number 2, you has also mentioned that I'm going to remove the incentives. I'm going to slowly bring down the incentives, make the rates much more competitive. Incentives and exemptions is going to do that. That he has also committed that. The third important aspect which the corporates are expecting is that the deferral of GAR. That's very important. Probably people may say it was unexpected lines, but it was very important because the administration of tax administration needs much more reform oriented, and that's much more important from the administration of a GAR perspective. He said the GAR, I will defer it for 2 years.
What about service tax?
Okay, before service tax, I'll come one more point on the corporate tax perspective. He has also made a comment that the Tax Administrative Reforms Commission of Dr. Shum, which they have given a various reports, we are going to look into those Administrative Reforms Commission points and we will look into it. Today what we need, Rajdeep, is not the law but administration of the law.
Correct.
And that's very important. There's no dearth of law in India. What we dearth is the administration of the law. From that perspective, I take it very positive on the budget side. Coming back to service taxes, there is a small increase from 12.54% to 14%.
That's right.
But it's a small percentage, it's only an indirect tax. But look at the overall perspective, I don't think that 12.54 to 14% should affect the corporate industries.
It won't, but it will make a few things more expensive in our lives.
But
that's
part
about
of
it.
GST.
It's part of GST, you believe. Okay,
Ultimately, you'll get a credit, that's all.
Okay. So from a tax perspective, you believe a roadmap has been laid out?
Has been laid
You know,
out.
the other key area that we were speaking about was infrastructure.
Rajat, one more point.
Yes.
You also talked about the manufacturing, but there are one area probably I expected that you would come up with the manufacturing, the special economic zones and the manufacturing, which you did not touch in the policy. I'm not sure whether it is coming in the memorandum on print. But he has also mentioned that I'm going to increase the deduction for employing the workmen from 100 to 50. That's a very important, because today if you look at it, the employment of the workmen is primarily in technology industry. The technology industry is not eligible. By extending to all the industries, even the IT companies and the BPS companies are also getting into that. So that gives a better leeway from my perspective.
I just want to use that infrastructure word because that was another key challenge that he had. How do you ensure greater investment in infrastructure? He spoke about the need for it. Yeah. Am I to understand
and
that
he
you
gave very
and he gave a few specific instances
I think
there as well.
both the infrastructure bonds, the infrastructure fund, the 70,000 crores that he has provided for the 14,000 for the roads,
tax-free infrastructure bonds that we are going to get a national investment and infrastructure fund.
Corporatizing the ports. I mean, these are very good things. The power plants, the mega power plants he talked about, and I think these are all good things. I guess we can only go by the speech right now.
Okay, so you're going by the speech. From the speech,
I would have liked to have just now. What I would suggest to him before he starts taking, doing press conferences, he should translate these numbers into jobs. He should translate the whole thing into a vision, because look, Modi government got elected to control inflation and create jobs. Well, they have managed to control inflation. Now people want to know exactly how many jobs are you
want to know exactly. I mean, that's not easy to say in a budget as to how many jobs are you going to create.
I think Gulshan is
just a minute, Sujit. I'm going to get CII. Let me get the corporate voices out first, because it appears that the biggest thumbs up, and money will say not surprising, has come from corporate India. Exactly.
Yeah. The fat cats have got fatter.
No, that's okay. That's what you call fat cats will also be the people who will provide jobs, hopefully, to the people of this country.
Take them away.
And the poor get social security. They are not fat cats.
Just a minute.
Come to that.
Rakesh Bharti Mittal is joining me from CII. Rakesh Bharti Mittal, your first reactions. CII usually gives 9.5 out of 10 to every budget. Are you genuinely going to give that 9.5 or a 10 to this budget?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, I don't believe in rating the budgets. Having said that, I must compliment the Finance Minister for laying a roadmap in taking India forward. I think clearly all the macroeconomic factors are showing a lot of stability, and I believe India is on the recovery of economic growth path. And
But can I come to specifics? Sorry, Mr. Mittal. Can I come to specifics? Because your company does work in infrastructure, you do work in agriculture. Did you see anything in this budget that will kickstart investment, particularly in agriculture?
In agriculture, there are basically a couple of issues which really hurt the farmers, to my mind, and includingly the private sector on the other side, and ultimately the beneficiary is the consumer. I think the introduction of soil health card and a large outlay for micro irrigation and watershed development projects will take care of the deteriorating soil health as well as the underground water which is not available. The other factor which I believe is going to be extremely important is a unified national agriculture market, which the Finance Minister talked about, and we need to see the contours of the final scheme. But I believe this will benefit the farmer to sell directly and bypass the intermediaries.
But do you believe
as
it's
well
a
as
job-creating
reduce
budget?
wastages and ultimately.
Do you believe this is a job-creating budget, Mr. Mittal? Do you believe this is a budget which will create jobs? Will it spur investment? Will it spur big business to invest in India rather than looking at options outside India? Do you believe that that message has come out of this budget, that actually there will be Make in India?
Well, certainly, yes. I think a few policy initiatives which he announced about ease of doing business, a pre-existing regulatory mechanism to kickstart the projects will bring in investments. Clarity on removing SAD, special additional duty, will help the manufacturing sector to become more competitive. And I believe this will spur growth and investment and ultimately lead to more job creation. And clearly, I think putting a national skills mission to consolidate all the various initiatives which help in more focused employment generation, especially for the rural youth.
Okay, I just want to for a moment focus on jobs because that's critical. You know, you're hearing Rakesh Bharti Mittal saying, yes, this will spur growth which will lead to jobs. Is that your worry? As someone who's not as enthused about the budget, that you haven't seen more specifics in terms of job creation? Because the other point, and Surjit makes it, that he has provided some kind of a social security architecture for the poor. So, you know, when you say this is a pro-rich corporate budget, Mr. Jaitley could turn around and say that there is an architecture which has been created.
I think it's certainly the social security scheme is very welcome, especially as it's coming through the insurance route. We need to see the numbers. We need to see actually how that's all going to be funded. You know, that you do a 2 lakh insurance at 12 rupees is magnificent, but we need to see how it's going to be funded. But my concern on jobs, Rajdeep, is this. We know that manufacturing, at least certainly automated manufacturing with 3D printing and all of that kind of stuff, is not going to create 10 lakh jobs a month. The point which we had talked about was how are we going to spur the tiny entrepreneur? How are we going to make that happen? I'm delighted the FM has taken a leaf out of the Aam Aadmi Party book and, you know, adopted the idea of incubator spaces and all of that.
No, he did speak specifically on more than one occasion about small industry, about Mani Shankar Iyer, who was asking for that. You know, the fact is that the FM did spend some time on looking at the needs of small scale industry and microfinancing.
There's no question that the intent is right, Rajdeep, but what we were looking for was clarity in terms of what actually specifically are you going to do.
That's the fine print.
That is the issue.
Therefore, we are talking about the fine print.
It's not part of the fine print. Let's be clear. Look, one example, and Meera brought up that she's very glad that the finance minister took a leaf out of the Aam Aadmi Party. This has a vision which is at radical right angles to the vision of the Aam Aadmi Party and the vision of the Congress. And let me illustrate. Basically, very quickly, what is the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress and these parties have done for the last 66 years? Take the recent thing, we want to help the poor, well, we'll give them free water. We want to help the poor, well, we'll make electricity half. Notice, he could have said that everybody gets 2 lakh insurance free of charge, but no. Emphasis on, if you will, that you have to pay for what you get, and the poor people get subsidy from the government to achieve their objectives. So this is a radically different, I want to take strong exception.
So better
that
targeted
this is
subsidies.
Not better targeted, it's the framework, it's the vision, it's the mindset that says that we can't dig ditches and therefore help the poor. It is very radically different. Then,
so
last point, we keep mentioning jobs. Why don't you mention growth? Because can you imagine growth without jobs?
No, I can't. I want to know how is that 8.1% or double-digit growth going to be realized as to what Mr. Jaitley said? Yes, Mr. Iyer.
There is absolutely no mention of the collapse in agriculture. He just doesn't mention that the growth rate is 1.1%. He doesn't mention that both wheat and rice as well as oilseeds and pulses have all gone down in the last year.
He spent a considerable amount of time.
I'm trying.
He spent a considerable amount of time on agriculture.
He did, but he didn't. What's the point of spending time on it when the fundamental parameters are not even mentioned, not even recognized? He hasn't recognized that private investment in agriculture has now been going down. And what we needed is a much bigger thrust on public investment in agriculture. All that he has been able to provide is, I welcome it, that there should be tests for soil fertility. That's excellent for the health of soil. I also think it's a good thing that he wants some minor irrigation done. But there is no large overarching program. No, let me finish the sentence. There's no large overarching program for the single most employment intensive sector of our economy, which is agriculture, which is growing at 1.1% when you're having dreams of growing at 10%.
Mr. Jaitley mentioned the rural-urban divide should be eliminated.
So what's the point of saying... No, Rajdeep.
A budget is a vision statement at one level.
A budget must not only have cliches that please small minds like those of Surjit. There must be a much larger vision.
Large minds
there must be a much... He keeps saying, let's be honest. I'm being honest. I'm being honest.
So there are cliches that feed large minds like mine.
I'm trying to say that there is nothing in this budget which underlines an understanding of the huge agrarian crisis in the country or the ways in which we are supposed to overcome that.
That emphasis on black money. I just want to get you there, Mr. Shekhar, and then I'll also go to our tax classroom. He gave a very detailed exposition of what he believes will be the legal architecture, much tougher architecture, including the point which was made by Meera Sanyal ahead of the budget that if you've got unaccounted wealth abroad, it will be seized and immediately become the property of the government. And the tax rate on that will be 300%. There will be 7 years imprisonment. Do you get a sense that these tougher laws will in any way reduce the amount of unaccounted wealth? And he also spoke about unaccounted wealth in this country as well, including cash transactions.
Rajdeep, if I go back to a panel discussion yesterday night where one of the panelist members said, if the black money finance is prevented through a tougher law, that's a good budget. If I take that parameter, definitely this budget marks a good budget, because first time I'm seeing a tremendous law which imposes a stricter punishment for black money offenders.
Will it reduce, will it be a disincentive on a businessman who wants to park his money in a Swiss bank?
The law is very clear. The administration of law is going back.
We are coming back
the
to
administration of the law is going to be much more tougher. If the administration of law becomes a tougher, then definitely this law will yield the results what we want.
Do you believe, because that's a nonsense, that's to be expected, but the general belief in the past has been tougher laws in this country have not resulted necessarily in actual compliance. Will this lead to greater compliance? Is there a clear disincentive today for an Indian?
It's a disincentive. Yes. It's a disincentive.
It is a major disincentive.
It's a major disincentive.
So there is a fear.
Absolutely.
Disincentive to fear.
Fear, absolutely. There is a fear that definitely create a fear factor.
There's a fear factor, money.
The reason is two reasons, I'll tell you, Rajdeep.
Yes.
Sorry.
Let him give an yes.
There's a 300% penalty is much. It's not a penalty amount. It's 300% penalty, though it's under the income tax law. Under the present, it's 100 to 300%. It's flat 300%. Second, 7 years rigorous imprisonment and 10 years rigorous imprisonment. Third one, it is automatically the property gets attached and enforcement directorate gets the permission automatically. Yes. Today the income tax law, present income tax law does not have the similar provisions, Rajdeep. That takes you to that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's a positive again. Let's be clear. There's been this huge debate, money, in this country, Gurcharan, on black money. Here comes the finance minister and says, I'm going to be tough on black money and give specifics.
And what I liked about...
let me just get in an HSBC bank representative. Sunil Sangai joins us. I know that HSBC has been a part of this controversy over black money, and I'm sorry to raise it here with you at the moment, but that's the way it is. We're just discussing the tough measures that the government has decided on black money. Your response to that, will this be a disincentive to Indian businessmen to park their money abroad?
Now, there have been some provisions in the budget, the provisions around the black money and all of that. I think clearly these are the provisions which are very welcomed.
So you would welcome them? You believe, and would you welcome the larger financial structure that he has put in place, financial reforms that he seems to be putting in place, including on offshore funds, for example?
Yeah, so if I can just come on the budget in general, I think there has been a lot of things to do with the capital market and the banking sector. If you look at the capital market, largely what the capital market is expecting, a lot of that has been addressed. So as you said that in terms of the offshore financing, etc., and through the funds to bring them onshore, the whole gift city concept, the REITs, withholding tax on the REITs, that has been cleared. The merger of FMCG with SEBI, that's an important element of the capital market. And the bond market, the importance of the bond market, and this time really concrete steps towards the bond market. So, on the capital market side, there have been a lot of things, a lot of initiatives which have been taken. From the banking perspective, I'll say one particular area, which particularly corporate and the banking both, is the bankruptcy law. India has been really needing this bankruptcy law. We never had a very robust bankruptcy law. And there is a mention about the bankruptcy law, which is a very, very positive steps.
Okay. Let me just hold you, Sunil, there, because I think financial reforms, as we sort of unmask and dissect the budget over time, that will be an important element also in this budget. And he did spend time on it again, and not just time, but gave specifics.
A real nugget, which seems to have escaped a lot of people, is that it looks small, but it's got a very big impact. That NBFCs, now SARFAESI, will be applicable to NBFCs. Yes. This banks had this, and basically what this does is, it allows a banker, if there's a willful defaulter or somebody, allows a banker to get his money back. Now, NBFCs did not have this protection. So this helps deepen the debt market in the country and gives a lot of, this is what other countries have, and we did not have it. And I think this is the kind of thing that he was talking about. Okay. All these small areas, bankruptcy reform, etc., are so important to becoming a modern economy.
So you think there are some steps that he's taken towards pushing us towards becoming a more modern economy, particularly when it comes to financial reforms and specifically. Let me just get a sense from a tax perspective, just make it simpler from a direct tax perspective. Forget the corporate taxation for a moment. Direct taxes, what does it mean to you and me? We're all presumably, I don't know how many of us are in that super rich category, which will have to pay what, 2% more, I believe, Preeti, in our tax classroom. If I earn, I think, if I remember the finance minister, he said, if you earn more than 1 crore a year, if that's what you're earning, then you'll have to pay 2% more on your tax.
Well, Rajdeep, I don't know about you, but most of us don't earn about that much of money, and we have a tax expert in the studio with us. We have Divya Baveja, and he's going to simplify it for us, because there's been no change in the tax slabs. Now, there's been a marginal, increase in a certain amount when we're talking about travel, and we're talking about maybe, the other, 80D, that's what you were talking about. Now, will there be any savings at all, or if there are savings, will it be offset by the increase in 2% service charge? I'm going to leave it to Mr. Baveja to actually explain to us on what kind of savings are our viewers looking at with no change in tax slabs. It's over to you, Mr. Baveja. Can you explain it to us?
Yeah. So when we look at the old tax slab and the new tax slab, see, first of all, there is no change in the tax slab.
Yes.
So when the finance minister talked about an additional saving of 4,44,200, what it actually means is nothing but an additional saving of only 19,600. And how it comes is how I'll show you. The basic limit earlier was 2,50,000, it remains 2,50,000. The ATC limit, which was 1,50,000, remains 1,50,000. Though the finance minister talked about an increase of 50,000 in the new pension scheme allocation on in the expenditure toward new pension scheme, but the law talks about an overall limit being 1,50,000. So that does not change unless we see something in the fine print. The 80D.
So that's where the change comes in.
That's where the change comes in, from 15,000 to 25,000. And the transport allowance, the change comes from 9,600.
All right, so 19, I have to give it, so 19,600 is what would be saved, right? And this could very well be offset by the 2% increase in service charge.
Right, so when we talked about service charge, service tax of 14%, actually more than 14%.
Right, so it's 2.6%. All right, so really not much there for the service class there. It's over to you, Rajdeep.
I just want to understand one thing. As a consultant, do you end up paying more or less? Sorry to ask that question. As straight and directed, if you're a consultant, do you pay 2% more service tax now?
Yeah, you sure?
Preeti?
Okay, that's the question I want to pose to Mr. Baveja. If you're a consultant now, that's what the talk is in the studio. Do you pay more than 2.6 service charge?
See, as a consultant, when I say in terms of service tax, the service tax is an indirect tax levy which is based on various services that we consume. So people end up paying 12.36, and for individual taxpayers there is no offset mechanism.
Right.
So in effect, this 2.06 increase will directly hit an individual taxpayer.
Okay.